For a long time, I've been wanting to do a video about Destiny 2 to kind of tell my story. I think every person that plays this game um, has a bit of a personal connection to it. It can really hit you in that way, and that is certainly true for me. I've gone through quite an experience. The passing of my wife in 2022, and even everything leading up to that. A lot for me has changed as a person, and Destiny as a game, as an escape, has been there through all of it. And I'm very, very pleased that the the game and the storyline, especially in recent times with the final shape, kind of telling their story, which is really about self and purpose, about finding your purpose and doing what you want to do and being happy, and so there's so many themes, and they're great. And I had no idea that was going to happen, but along the way the story was preaching similar concepts, and the storyline's fascinating, and it's just a fascinating game. And although my friends who know me in real life, uh, they often hear me talk about it or complain about it. Um, and I've had incredibly frustrating moments along the way. I've had friends just up and quit. I've had people, you know, um, get the wrong impression about me and sort of like, oh, he's really cocky, or he thinks he's better than everyone else. Nothing could be further from the truth. I started out this game as a horrible player, and I think now I'm okay. You know what I mean? I don't think I'm great or the best or anything, but I'm able to clear most of the content, and that's what I wanted to do. That makes me happy. Anyway, so I've been wanting to make this video for a long time to kind of just share this story and this journey. And the audience, I'm not even really sure who it's for. I think it might even be for the Destiny 2 team, to thank them for making this content, um, and making such a masterfully, presented game in terms of everything, the graphics, the story. I just love every bit of it. And, I want to start from the beginning when I hadn't even played Destiny 1, hadn't even heard of it. And a couple of my friends told me about the game. So let's start there. So, why did I start? Somewhere in 2017, a couple of my friends that I'd been playing Call of Duty with said we should try Destiny 2. And I'm like, what's Destiny 2? What's Destiny 1? You know? And they told me a little bit about it, and they're telling me it's a first person shooter, MMO, which made no sense to me because I'm thinking an MMO is like this really deep, game where like you go collect gear and fantasy. There's like quest lines, and I'm like, I'm gonna go like do a long quest line and just get like another gun. Like I'm like, how many guns can you hold at one time? How many can you use? And it's like, like use three. And I just the whole concept of a shooter MMO made no sense to me. And so the first thing I did was I Googled um, Destiny 2 reviews. And this was like a couple months had gone by and we kept talking about this. This was like around May. And the first article that popped up at the top of my Google search results was something like 16 reasons not to play Destiny 2. And of course, I got a good laugh about that. But anyways, my friends Mike and Brandon, they turned me onto the game, and the day that it came out, we were all set to play. Downloaded the game, got it ready, installed, did the whole deal, and they did too. And we played for a little while. I don't remember exactly how long, but ultimately at some point they quit. And I think this is one of the first lessons that I learned, is that there are two types of gamers. There are gamers who are just waiting for the next title. They're waiting for the next release. They want to consume as many games as they can. And then I think there's another type of person um, that is more, I want to explore this game and all that it has to offer. And that's the type of gamer that I am. And so it's funny that although the three of us all started, it's now 2024, and I'm the only person that's been playing for the last 7 years. So the next question is, why did I keep going? As I started playing, the story and the graphics really, really captured me. The I remember the mission where I was just like, "This is amazing," and my memory of the timeline, especially pre 2020, is really flawed. The first 3 years are really a blur, but somewhere in like the Red War, I thought it was during the Red War, the original opening campaign. There was this part where we go up to the Almighty. The Almighty is like this. It's this sun destroyer. It's this huge ship that puts out this huge like beam of energy that they point it at the sun, and it like the sun like explodes or dies in some horrible catastrophic way. And the sheer size of the Almighty is so enormous. And not only were the developers and the producers of the game, able to capture that, they were able to capture this concept of like, so when during the campaign, the Almighty is positioned between the planet Mercury and our sun. And if you can imagine being out in space and like at that point, like what would it be like? And in the campaign, you had to like run through. You eventually come out onto like the surface of the ship, and like the sun is like right there. And I just remember seeing that, and just it blew my mind. They call it the skybox, so like everything you could see. It was just it was phenomenal, and you had to run across the surface of the ship for a brief moment, and you wouldn't survive if you were out in the sunlight, so you had to like duck behind these shadows and stuff. And just the level of detail that was gone to, not just with the graphics but with the game design, it just really, it had set itself apart from any other game that I had played up until this point. And as time went on, other things really got me too. There are a host of characters. They're all voiced by professionals. You got Gina Torres for Ikora Ray. You got Lance Reddick for Zavala. And I think it's funny that whoever made this graphic for Lance spelled his last name wrong. I mean, they must have had Riddick on the mind. And I'm thinking, well, the only way to make a person look like Riddick is to just like add those goggles. I don't know. But anyway, I was really getting attached to the characters. And then, of course, Cade 6. And Cade 6 being the Hunter Vanguard, had this really prominent role early in the game, and he was kind of taking you through the story. So I was just incredibly captured by everything. Like I say, the graphics, the gameplay, but the characters and the story, and how you're the we're the guardian, and they keep referring to you, the player, as the guardian, and it's sort of like this active role that you end up taking in the story. It became very immersive, and I just really enjoyed it. It was awesome. So how good of a player was I? From 2017 to 2020, I would say I was absolutely terrible. I remember in the beginning, I had no idea what I was doing. The jumping was incredibly frustrating. Um, I spent most of my time, like the first 3 months, just running around the EDZ, like doing public events. Um, I only played the hunter because the jump mechanics for each class. Well, I hadn't even tried the other classes for a really long time, and even by the time I got to them, I couldn't stand the jumping, so I like immediately went back to the hunter. And I started collecting some exotics for the hunter, so literally for the first 3 years, I only played hunter, and I refused to play the other classes. And this becomes a key point later in this story. I didn't dare raid. I couldn't do any higher solo content like legend or mass lost sectors. I was dying in just regular lost sectors. It was pretty embarrassing. Um, uh, but what was kind of cool is my brother and another friend that I'd played World of Warcraft with named Seish. They came in. They played too, and it turned out Seish had experience, I think, from Destiny One, and so he had a lot of knowledge, and he really started kind of teaching us a little bit. But I remember, doing stuff with them early on, and I was for sure the weakest link. I would die a lot. I didn't really have very good weapons, so like I might be able to like, do ad clear or whatever, but I couldn't kill any bosses. So I remember back then, like we could barely get through prophecy, I didn't really understand half the mechanics, you know, and we certainly couldn't do more than like a base nightfall. There was no way we were going to do a legendary or a master or a GM nightfall. Um, but I just wanted to mention in there that that's kind of when early on started playing with my brother and with Seish, and we had a lot of fun. But I was for sure like an absolutely horrible player. So one might ask themselves at this point, or ask me, did being bad affect my enjoyment of the game? At first, absolutely not. I think I was too naive to really know the difference. Destiny 2 has a lot of layers. There's a lot of things to learn about, like armor and weapons and mods and gun perks, and on top of that, it's, the different weapon meta types, and then once you get into content like raiding and stuff, it's like, well, is it a burst phase or is it a long phase? And there's different weapon types that work better for certain encounters. I had zero clue about any of that for the first like 2 to 3 years that I played. Um, and then something really interesting happened when the stasis content came out. There was this really fun build with the Ager's Scepter and a Hunter, and you could just kind of like go around and freeze everything. It was a super fun um, build that someone had put together. I was just starting to learn about builds. It was probably the first time I even Googled like Destiny 2 build. I knew nothing about that stuff, and I had finally went and did one. But what I didn't realize is that Seish had done it, and he'd been telling me about it. And so he showed up one day, and he was like, "Hey, I found this really cool hunter build." And I'm like, "Oh, cool!" And I didn't catch the whole thing. And then I did the same thing, and we showed up in an instance with both of our hunters with the exact same build, which was, I mean, I thought it was funny, but what happened was he was like, "Do you have anything else? Can you play like Warlock or Titan or even just a different build?" You know, and I was kind of like, I said no. And when I said no, I really meant I can't play a Warlock or a Titan. That's what I thought he meant. But I think he was just asking even like, how about just even a different build? Regardless of the question or my misinterpretation of it, it made me realize that like I was not helping, right? I was not contributing to our content. I was thinking back to the prophecy dungeon and this other stuff and all these things we had done, and it finally kind of occurred to me that like, I mean, he was carrying us for one, and two, I wasn't willing to like even try a different class. And I remember, he didn't really say anything, and I think he left. And then he didn't talk to me for a really long time. Not like totally ignore me, but just he was kind of, we didn't play Destiny 2 for, well, that was the last time we played Destiny 2. It's now 2024. It was like 4 years ago. And so that set off a thing in me that was kind of like, wow, if I want to play with others, I have to change my attitude, and I need to get better at the game. So the recap of that last little piece the question I'd asked at the beginning is, did being bad, affect my enjoyment of the game? It didn't affect my enjoyment of the game, but it affected my ability to do things. And so the first thing I set out to do was learn a new class. And people had been suggesting Warlock, so that's exactly what I did. Is I switched to Warlock. Um, Not only did I switch to Warlock, but I had um, some other friends that were playing, and I had some people that were playing from the very beginning. So I actually created a whole second account and started completely from scratch on the Warlock and kind of re-familiarized myself with the game from the very beginning. And I played through on the Warlock, and I actually went all the way up to the point I did a I did a Root of Nightmares run, and I actually got the conditional finality, which is the shotgun. And I don't know why I did it on that account. I think I wanted to see if I could. Um, and the fact that I got that gun on that account, but I don't have it on my main account, like really pissed me off. So um, that's when I switched back and I stopped playing that new account. But anyway, in the screenshots and stuff that I'm sharing, you'll see a series of like, my name is Storm, my name is Kep, and that, harkens back to an earlier slide too. I was sort of having kind of not an identity crisis, but my name Kep was a name from World of Warcraft, and only a few people knew me as Kep. And it didn't have any real ring to it. It doesn't really mean anything. And what I was finding is that when I would do stuff with people, it's such a short name and it sounds like so many other words. I would often miss it. Someone would be like, "Hey, Cap, did you do that? Did you get that thing, or did you push that button?" And I'm like, Was that me they're talking to? Like, I wouldn't even hear my own name. So I'd been kind of thinking about it for a while, and I think I'd already changed my BattleNet ID to Storm. So kind of at some point, I officially changed my name in like all of my gaming platforms over to Storm. Um, I just think it's a cool thing. I dream about storms a lot. That's all it really means to me. It's not anything special. Um, uh, there's the it's not the MC universe, is it? It's the X-Men Storm. I know there's a character with that already, and I was a little bit worried about, how prevalent would the name Storm be. And interesting thing about that is, I don't know if Bungie has some algorithm, but it would never put me in a game with another person whose name was Storm, first of all. And secondly, it would I ever see someone with Storm even in their name. And I wonder if that's by design. That's a question I kind of wanted to ask the devs. But anyway, so began my journey to learning the Warlock and, learning how to jump as a Warlock. And it completely changed the game for me because all of the survivability issues I was having with the Hunter were almost completely solved by being able to drop healing rifts, and so on. And so, yeah, I kind of switched to Warlock and got pretty good at it. So, in October of 2021, I made my own guild, Crimson Sigil. And to be fair, by this point, I had been through several raids, and I knew enough about like Vault of Glass and Last Wish, Deepstone Crypt, and Garden of Salvation. That's 4 raids out of like 7 that I could teach. So that's why I decided, okay, I think I'm ready, So I made this guild. So, and my theory there was that really the greatest test of knowledge is, can you teach it to someone else? Um, and I didn't think I was great or perfect or whatever, but I had the time and I had the experience to at least get something off the ground, and I figured I would try to recruit Sherpas, to help do these other raids. And so that's exactly what we did. And I know it's just a video game, but like, I think I do like a little bit more of a personal touch. I think I like a smaller, group where you kind of run with the same people a little more frequently. That's kind of more my jam. And so that it was sort of that and these other things that is what Crimson Sigil was born from, this desire to be in a little bit more intimate group where you get to kind of know the same people. And that's the experience I was looking for. So before we knew it, we had plenty of people, and we started clearing raids, and um it was awesome. It was awesome. Now, my experience with this, I actually ended up leaving the clan and then coming back. My first iteration, um, it didn't. There were some people that were joining that didn't. It wasn't like I was doing interviews. It was just like we just kind of take whoever, and as long as people are not completely obnoxious, as long as they can get on Discord and like follow instructions, cool. And after a while, we stopped even doing that. We're like, we'll just take people. Even people that don't want to raid, right? Because there's other things you can do in the game, and I don't want to be too, whatever, limiting. Well, that turned out to backfire because then after a while, some of these people wanted to do things, and um, it wasn't really kind of the vision I wanted. Also, this was during the time when my wife was getting worse. She was still alive, and I probably really had no business, leading a clan at that point. And so I took a step back, and I ended up leaving the clan altogether. Um, some time passed, and then eventually I was really missing though the core group of that people. They were really great people. I was really missing the core group, and I asked if I could come back, and they said yeah, and I came back, and I came back as like the leader of the clan, not just a member, but they had promoted some other people into a leadership role, which was great. And we set out to do even more, and we did it. As a guild, we ended up clearing every single raid, and I think that was probably one of my proudest moments. Was I was able to lead 4 of the raids, but those other new ones, I hadn't done several of them, and I'd only done Crota's End, like once. And so we got a couple people that came in and led these raids. And in Root of Nightmares, we kind of just figured it out together. Different people had some different experience on different bosses, and we just worked it out. And we did it as a clan. And then I remember that we saved Vow of the Disciple for the very last raid. And when we finally killed Ralk, that was really like, I had such a great feeling that this group of people that we had assembled had gone through, and cleared all of these raids. We're getting all these, achievements and clan achievements or whatever. And I was so proud. I was so happy. It was actually like kind of like mission accomplished at that point. But as I mentioned before, you know, the I did leave the clan twice, and so despite all of this success that we were having, there were still a few people that weren't didn't quite jive, and I hold myself responsible for that. I started the guild with a guy, and it turns out that and I love him to death, but we're not cut from the same cloth. The way that he likes to play and the way that I like to play were very, very different. Sometimes those would mesh, and sometimes they were completely at odds with each other. And more so, I didn't feel like I'm good at, like, I think, getting people together, but I'm not good at being like an overall leader. I think I might, like, I could lead a raid, or I could do things in like small batches, but like holding a whole guild together and kind of doing this like long-term thing, that's not really me. I'm not cut out to be a guild master or a clan master. I think I'm best in a role that is sometimes asked to step up. But otherwise, I like to just be like everybody else. you know so I did leave. Again, and for the final time. And my new goal was master content. And so I joined a guild, and they did something really cool. They would teach you the raids, but they would actually teach you using the mechanics from the master level difficulty. So the only way that like you knew how to do certain things was the same way you would do them when you go to do master level content. It really opened my mind to like, wow, the things that I've learned, or the quote, mechanics for these other raids, there's always a different way to do something. Anyway, I ran with those guys. I'd get my first full master clear of VOG. I got my first adept weapons. I got my Firefly explosive payload, hand cannon, which was awesome. Got a couple others, that were pretty cool. But I didn't stay because the lead, as great as this clan was, they were so negative. A couple of the guys were always complaining about the game or the developers or whatever. And, and the leaders, they just kind of sounded depressed. I remember sitting in a channel with them, like the day that I ended up leaving. I was sitting in a channel with them, and I was like, are you guys having fun? And they're like, they were saying yes, but you could hear it in their voice that they weren't, that this was just exhausting. They were ready for new content, and it really bummed me out, because I thought, this is the group that I stand to learn the most from, and I would love just to be here and play with these people. They're so good, and they're very nice, but they were just so negative, and that negativity became a thing that I started to become more aware of. So here's where I'm going to talk about having fun and negativity. And this is kind of almost one of the major points of this whole video. The longer that I've played, the more I've seen or become aware of how negative and toxic some people are. I knew it from World of Warcraft, and I felt like from the beginning that Destiny 2's community was a little bit more positive. Each community is different, and of course they are different players, different game type, whatever. But as I hopped around, and I did hop around from clan to clan, still kind of searching for this quote perfect, group. I was exposed to all kinds of different, points of view, and what's funny is I know how to enjoy the game, right? Like I knew how to enjoy it as a noob, and now as a more advanced player. Again, not saying I'm God's gift to gaming. I'm just, I'm able to clear all the raids. I'm able to do some master content. I feel like I'm able to do Grandmaster Nightfalls now. Like I've can do most of the game content. And it's no different at any level. There are negative people and positive people. And I found some themes that are consistent among the people who are negative. Like, they're always hating on Bungie. They're like, oh, well, the Bungie devs this, or, oh, Bungie got bought out by this other company. It's like, I don't do that. I don't hate on Bungie. Right. I don't blame the devs or the changes in ownership of the company for like problems with the game. I'm not saying that they're not there and that there aren't correlations, but like, do these things impact the game? Maybe, but to what extent? Hard to say. Do I have any control over that? No. Have I ever? No. Will I ever? No. So it's like, and the other thing is, it's not even a unique complaint. Those complaints, you take any game and they're always the same. They blame the devs, they blame the company. It's like, it's not even a unique complaint. One person starts it and then another person kind of just hops on the bandwagon. The truth is, most people don't know anything about gaming companies, like the roles involved or how products get developed, how they're tested and moved through the pipeline, but it's really easy for a gamer who spent like 40 or 60 or even $80, to complain about issues. Right. And you would think that like they bought a house or a car or something really expensive with the way that they complain. And I find that it's almost embarrassing. It's almost embarrassing to just sit there and be just like, how naive and stupid are you? You know, they just, you know, the sense of entitlement, right? On top of really a lack of knowledge of how those things work. Um, for me personally, I keep all that in check, right? Like it's a game. The point is to have fun, and I do. I have fun. And so what I learned is that that's the kind of people that I want to be surrounded by, right? I want to be surrounded by people who understand that we're just trying to have fun, that this is a video game, right? And we're gonna keep it that way, you know. And as I started browsing for guilds, I started looking for those words in their recruitment message, and it turns out there are guilds and clans that do exactly that. They're like, no negativity, leave it at the door. We don't want to hear you complaining about Bungie or the developers or whatever. And I'm just like, oh, that is such a breath of fresh air. Um, and you know, like gaming in the first place, it's an escape. I don't want to jump into voice and hear people complain about the game or why they hate a certain mechanic or whatever. Like, hey, then don't play. You know, I'm loving it, and you being negative is like bringing other people down. So, um, to kind of start to bring this to some closure, you know, why, why did I do all this? Why did I make this video? Why am I talking about all this? There are two major reasons. The first one is I, I, I mean, I started to do this. Well, why did I do all of what I just said? Um, back when I did it, why did I change guilds and go through all that movement? I did all of it to prove to a friend that I could be better. And along the way, I mean, I think I realized that I was actually doing it to prove to myself that I could be better, you know, and almost by accident, I discovered that all the negativity about the game was kind of getting in my way. You know, it wasn't helping me learn new content or teach people or get through any of that stuff. Um, you know, and the purpose of this video is to communicate this journey that I've been through to those friends and the people that I play with, but also to kind of thank Bungie, and I'll get to that in a minute. Somewhere along the way, between real life, you know, work, home situation, and this game, it's like there's sort of there's no secret, right, to success. There's a very specific formula, you know, and if you follow it, you'll succeed. And it's like there are a couple of traits that apply to all things. It's like, you know, stay positive, right? Surround yourself with others with like initiatives and attitudes. You know, don't be afraid to move a few times until you find it. You know, when you do find it, don't quit on a dime. I've made that mistake. You know, use the tools that people suggest. You know, become fluent with them. Ask questions. You know, and along the way, I found that I, as a person, changed. I mean, my wife passing away, I value things differently now. I used to take people for granted. I did. I don't have a problem admitting that. You know, but now I really value the friendships and relationships that I have. You know, people don't last forever. You know, I'm almost 50. This is more than a game to me, you know. The story itself preaches almost the same message about finding a purpose and to live to your potential and to enjoy life. So with that, by the video, it's really it's to share that message about staying positive. I want to thank the Destiny 2 community that has been positive, helped me realize this and taken me on this journey. And that includes everybody, everyone from clans to friends to pugs, good or bad. You know, you've shown me a lot about the game, whether directly or indirectly, and taught me that the most important things are to stay positive and to never give up. I want to thank Bungie, all the developers and producers and people who worked on the game. It's an absolutely incredible game. It's helped me through rough times, but it's also entertained me for countless hours. And I can't think of any other activity that I would have rather spent the last 7 years, or that I'll continue to spend, for as long as the game, continues to be. I'll be here. So sincerely, thank you.